honors it and hopes to give you a little bit of air right back for all that you do. So that's my intention for this time together. I tend to talk with my hands. Sorry, that's genetic and from my mo'oku au hau pukiki. So let's boogie, shall we? And maybe a little bit my olapanes. I'm a hula person, so sometimes you can give it a pua without saying pua, you know? So e ho'omakakako, shall we? Okay, so before we do anything else, let's just take for a moment, those of you that are here with me, let's just go ahead and take a couple of deep breaths to get settled in this space, shall we? Okay, Hanu. Ha. Hanu. Ha. Hanu. Ha. And the last one we're going to do, smell the pakalana, Hanu. And ha, see your breath at Ice Palace. Okay, how are we feeling? Are we good? That's how I say, Kalamai Ice Palace is a very Oahu reference, but Ice Palace is the only place I ever got to see my breath as a kid because I don't live uka enough to see it. As my father-in-law just reminded me, it's also if you live uka in Wahiawa, you know what ha means because you get to see your breath every morning on the way to school. Okay, mahalo everybody. Hopefully we're all feeling good and ready to take some of this in. What you guys probably know is because we're talking about provider burnout and caregiver stress and compassion fatigue, that we are going to be talking about some heavy stuff. What I want you to focus on is the reason we did our breaths was to pale a little bit so that you don't take the heaviness of these things in too deep and focus the energy mostly on the what you do about it to be strong and resilient and get that breathing going again. So that was our kind of our pale moment. If you need to offer a quick pule to make sure that stuff doesn't stick on you, go ahead and do that right now because I'm going to show you all the things that can cause stress for you. So I don't want you to go, oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. And then you're heavy. Okay. So let's go ahead and boogie. I will share a screen soon as my capacity to share screen is enabled. Ke olu olu. But it's okay. You know me, I can talk to myself all the time. So we don't need slides for me to roll. Okay.
Do you want me to do the poll yet?
Oh, yeah, let's do the poll. Great idea. Lisa, let's see who's here. I only see some names I know, please.
So this is multiple choice. We'll give a few minutes for folks to answer.
It's just one way of knowing who's here. So give me a couple of clicks for what you are in your various kulana. And then we can sing Kana'i Aupuni to find out what aina you're from. Just kidding, we won't. But in your head, can you put that playing in the background while you fill out the poll? See, I'd rather have you singing Kana'i Aupuni than singing the Jeopardy song. Oh, I said it. Now you have it in your head. Kalamai. It's a jingle.
Okay, it looks like 86% have voted. And at Kalamai, this is for those that have their desktop Zoom application. So if you're on your phone, I'm not sure if it'll
let you play.
90%.
You know what you should say instead of the Jeopardy song is the facts of life. You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of life. If you do like just that, boom, you're done.
Are we dating ourselves?
I am. And I'm a wonderful date, so I'm down with it. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end polling. It looks like everybody's done it, and we're going to see the results.
Mahalo, everyone. Okay, who's here? Mahalo. Okay, and we have a whole bunch of other. I want to know about the other. Can you throw in the chat what you are if you're other, or did everybody just go like, I am all things, therefore I am all these and other? If you said other, can you chat me what you are? I just want to know. Hoi hoi wau ikela. I'm interested in that. A spouse. Thank you. Yes. So yes, the group looks like it's distributed fairly evenly between providers, caregivers, parents, other. I'm going to guess many of you are Thank you, Kamahana. Yes, Kalamai. Yes, leadership. That's another category that I think I appreciate. And for those of you who are leaders, or if you are in any of these categories, first responders, any of these folks, you are who I'm talking to today. The topic that I am sharing today is really for all of you. So insert whatever word you need to put there: health provider, leader, good person who cares about others, whatever the words are that go there. Please know I'm hoping that this reaches you as well. So thank you. Okay, so that was a good little sneak peek as to who is here. Okay, now I promise this will not be a very painful death by PowerPoint, but there is a little bit of PowerPoint to it because it helps folks kind of follow along when they need a moment to stop, reflect, and then come back. So forgive me for the PowerPointy parts of the day. I will turn it off when we can. This is so that you can find me if you need me when you look back later. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do today. In our wonderful 90 minutes together, we are gonna go over self-assessment. So the first thing we're gonna do now that we've breathed and we pale and we're all set, we're gonna do a self-assessment. We're gonna talk about what compassion fatigue is. And like I said, this is for all of you, caregiver and health provider. I mean, all of us are a caregiver if we give care. Anyway, but you know what I mean. You caregivers on the line, you know what I mean. Health providers, and then recognizing it when it's happening. So when you have burnout happening, when you have compassion fatigue showing up, how do you know in yourself and in others? And then what to do about it. This is where I really hope that most of the energy focuses today is on the strategies. What do we do and how do we think so that we can prevent this from happening for us? And then when some of it sticks to us, how do we heal ourselves from it so that we can keep fighting the good fight? We're going to talk with a little bit of a lens of COVID on top of this today. But as you're going to see, I'm going to kind of build a case for the idea that this is something that's just an always maintenance thing. And then COVID just made it all so that everybody's sort of like more tuned into it. Okay. Oh, hi, Lilaka. Yes. Lonely practitioner. Yes, a healer. So all of you can boogie. Okay, here we go. This is my first assessment. Are you excited? This is a temperature check. And this is raise your hand if, okay, well, don't raise your hand till later. I'm gonna read them all and then you have to count how many of these are you, okay? Know someone who's had COVID, had a change in your daily schedule because of the pandemic, experienced financial strain, have to live with a blend of remote and in-person work in a different way than usual, having to juggle childcare, work, and your own health. We can put also spouse care on there and caregiving responsibilities, experienced a loss, worry about vaccines, whether there are enough, whether you should get it, do I have side effects, just something vaccine-y. Had too many conversations this year about the availability of sanitizing wipes and toilet paper. Experienced media overload, feel worn out or sad more this year, miss hugging people. And the last one, this is a reverse scoring one for the data nerds in our group. Kept up your exercise and healthy habits the whole time. Okay. Can you raise your hand if at least 3 of these are true of you? You can do your virtual hand raise. Anybody gonna say they've got a perfect score? They've got all yeses and one great big no at the end there, maybe? Anybody? We've got some perfect scores. I can tell you the truth that this is yes for me on all. So I've got a perfect 10. Thank you, Chia. See, look at that. We got Kauai in the house. Hey, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much. So this is why we had to breathe and pale first, because if I showed you this list and asked you your count, you might feel bummed out. Just hang in there, okay? Now what I want you to do is either on a piece of paper, if you have handy quadrile graph paper because you're from my era and it's in your drawer right under your lined notebook paper. Just kidding, nobody has that anymore, I know, but I do. With your hand, just with your mind, I want you to draw yourself a graph of your own well-being since February 2020. What has it looked like? Ups and downs, peaks and valleys. I'll point to a couple of months in case it helps you remember. Near the end of March was when we had the statewide first of the shutdowns. Around June-ish, we were feeling pretty great about ourselves because we had gotten our COVID rates down to the single digits. Then July and August, we saw that first kind of uptick after our beautiful bragging rights days and travel opened. And then we've had September, October, and November, which I call the time when the election sort of took over much of media. And then we had Christmas and vaccine talk in January and February. And now we have that, oh, what's going on thing. Can you picture what your graph looks like? Okay, good. If you drew it, I also want you to draw on top of it. What did the lines look like for the people that you live with, whoever that is, whoever are your peeps? Draw their lines. Okay. Now, why did I have you draw lines of yourself and the people you work with? The deal is that no matter your state in life, no matter how sunshiny and energy glow bright you are as a human being, the pandemic created a potential for widespread burnout across all of us. Because even at times when maybe you were hanging in there, somebody else in your family might be having a dip when you're going up. Or maybe the down was really hard to come out of. Or for some of you, was it one of these? Whatever the shape it was, these pressures that we experience on the pandemic kind of layer on top of whatever else you already had going on in life, right? And if you are a caregiver, a provider, a first responder, you're a leader, you're a parent, you're a teacher, you're in almost any identity, you already had a certain amount of stress. And so adding this on top created a situation where our normal coping strategies just haven't always been enough. Even the best copers among us struggled sometime this year in some way. Now, what does it look like on them versus on you? Really, really varies. But this idea that we're all struggling a little bit kind of makes this conversation even more timely. Yeah? Okay, so caregivers and health providers. Remember I said I'm talking to all of you. This is a group of people who were at risk even before the pandemic occurred. What do I mean by that? I mean, because you have the potential for burnout and secondary trauma all the time because you are a healing practice, right? Caregivers are providing healing in their love, in their support of people, because you have deep empathy for the patients and people you care for. Very few people enter these professions, careers, or have these kinds of relationships if they don't have a deep empathy for other people and wanting to help heal. And by virtue of the work, you have frequent and extended exposures to other people's suffering. Just being around suffering in other people can create a risk for burnout and secondary trauma. Secondary trauma is a word that comes out of the talk. It first arrived in our universe when we talked about folks that were survivors of very big traumatic incidents like war, or having to flee their country because, something happened and you had to become a refugee because you needed to escape a dangerous situation, that the folks providing care for them began to experience the trauma themselves from being around people that had intense traumatic experiences. And so for us, we can distinguish between burnout and secondary trauma because they're not necessarily the same thing. Sometimes burnout can just come from providing care over and over again, same to someone who's suffering or people who are suffering. And that secondary trauma comes when the thing that you're caring for or the folks that you're caring for has an extra heaviness related to something truly awful happening to them at the same time. So both can happen. These are just some references. They're oldies but goodies, I want to say, in terms of reading about this if you need them. These are for you. And also some of my definitions, I checked in with them about these sources I used in putting this together, just so you know. So that's the basic idea, is what is this compassion fatigue? What is the burnout that I'm speaking about? It comes from this. It comes from day in, day out, providing care to others and having to be exposed to their suffering while you do it. There are things about that that are unique when you are caregiving for a family member that are different than when you're a health provider. And we can talk a little bit about that distinction. I'll spend a minute on that here. The obvious difference being most of the time when you're a caregiver, you are if you're providing care to a family member, relative, or friend, that relationship makes it harder to know what the boundaries are. It makes it harder for you to go, I'm really burnt out today. I just can't. I need to go take a walk at the time the person wants company. or needs something. That kind of role adds another sort of risk of emotional burnout, because how much is too much to give to take care of a person you love? There's not an easy answer to that. And so what we find often is that caregivers can be they can be more as or more sick than the people they take care of in the long run, because they tend to neglect their own needs to take care of the person that they love. So they might skip their own doctor's appointment, not be good about feeding themselves the right foods or taking their medicine consistently because they're focusing on providing that for the person they love and care for. Now, when we talk about health providers, we have a different kind of challenge. So while there may not be that same emotional connection and relationship to a specific person, the volume and number of people that you extend care to over your time tends to be more. Because it's your stated profession, there is that idea that you are going to see more than one person. Usually when you caregive, you care for one or a few. And then if you are a health provider who does caregiving, like if you work in kupuna care, for example, you have kind of a blend of both. Partly because you will care for the people that are your patients or clients that you care for. And because as a provider, you're expected to extend that love and care over many people. So you can see where each of them has its own route to being a tough job. It's also a super rewarding job, because just like you can absorb their eha, you get to absorb their light and hope and joy. So I want to also remind us all of that part of why we do it, because I know some of you are arguing at the computer right now, going, it's not all trauma, it's not so hard, it's from love. Yes, you are right. That there's also inspiration and joy and love and light. That's why I do it. Because I know that if I can give care to someone nobody else could reach, isn't that something? Isn't that a worthwhile life? So yes, there is all this gift that comes from doing this wonderful work. And then there's the heaviness, the kaumaha. Yep. So we're talking about the kaumaha today, but we all know right after this, you're going to hang up the Zoom and you're going to go help someone. So don't worry. I know. I'm with you. Okay. So remember I said it was hard, and I said, okay, COVID added some whole bunch of stress. And then I said, and by the way, this is a group that was at risk even before the pandemic. Now let's layer on one more and one more. And one more is, and if you are a member of a group that is indigenous, that is a migrant group or an immigrant group to the, that you come to a country, that you experience racism and bias, that you feel frustrated and not being heard or represented in a system, you have that layer of stress already on you as well, right? So if you layer in, you are from a group that experiences systemic bias, racism, that you're an indigenous group, whatever, you're a member of our lahui, and you are a caregiver or a health provider, and you live in 2020, 2021, so you know what COVID-19 is. Those are layers of stress that produce a greater risk of burnout and compassion fatigue. I don't know if you guys all know this, but it ain't easy being Hawaiian. It ain't easy being a lot of things. But in terms of this sort of stress and kaumaha, there's a big stuff there. And by the way, you might recognize those slides from my talk about health healing and aloha aina a couple years ago, same series. That's why I brought them back, because I was like, remember this? In case any of you came to play way back then. So all of that said, we have these layers of risk that put us at risk to say, okay, if you are Kanaka or Kanaka adjacent, that's one of my favorite terms for folks that fight the good fight with us, Kanaka adjacent. I think the English word is ally, but or you're from another group that experiences bias, racism, you're Wahine, you're a parent, you're anything, where the systemic structures around it are set up for you to have a harder time than others. Then you have a potential for burnout, right? You have to do things to really be strong in your taking care of your own health, to be resilient in the face of those things. And you guys might be like, I got it. What are you talking about? I got this. Yeah, because you already expect that you need to be resilient in that space. And then you take on caregiving or being a health provider. And you go, yep, that's part of the job. I just accepted. I knew when I signed on that I was going to have to do this. So you have a certain layer of coping that you expected yourself to do. And then pandemic comes along, and that layer is like, oh, that might stretch me more than I normally expect to do. Does that help? That's kind of the idea here. And so with that said, it becomes more important to recognize the signs of caregiver burnout. What does it look like when I have compassion fatigue? What does it look like if I'm secondary trauma? What are you talking about? Because you're like, you mean I have a bad day or I need a vacation? Yeah. If you start hearing somebody talking about they need a vacation a couple too often a day, just kidding, just too many times, maybe they need one. You know what I'm saying? So let's give this a shot. So let's look at all the different signs of caregiver burnout. So just because there's too many of us to have a real conversation, can you just talk to yourself right now and call out what might be some physical signs that somebody is burnt out? Oh, I heard one of you say sleep. Just kidding. I didn't, but I have a good imagination. So, right, we're going to talk about things about how your physical body shows when you're not okay. Any of you start having sleep disturbance? Any of you want to eat very little or too much? The very littles, you guys are weird. I don't know you, but no, I'm just kidding. Sometimes I lose my appetite, but right after that, catch up. So, yeah, maybe you gain weight. That's one of the signs. When the pants don't button so much, we go like, oh, I must be donut eating to feel better just a little bit too often. Chronic pain. So some folks are more sensitive to pain. They experience things like stomach aches and headaches. Maybe they're, what are some of the things? Just generally dysregulated. Things that normally flow just fine digestively, right? Your Lua routine is like clockwork. All of a sudden, it's emergency or not for days. Right, all of those things. So those would be the beginnings of the physical signs. Now let's think behaviors. What do people look like when the seams show? Anybody thoughts about this? They might be engaging in, let's call them escapist behaviors, things that help us do Calgon, take me away. Some of them are very healthy and some of them are super not healthy. Right? Oh, maybe we're snapping at our ohana. Yep, our relationships are going to get there. So maybe there's more alcohol being consumed. Maybe there's, anyway, there's all kinds of stuff happening. Okay, mental and emotional. What's happening there? When we're burnt out, we see a bit more like tunnel vision. It's harder for us to see more options and be flexible in solving problems. We go, nope, this is the only way we can fix it. And then because we're tunnel vision, because we're burnt out, when other people try to suggest something else, we go like, no. So we're irritable, a little more grouchy. Maybe we're sad. Maybe we're numb. And some people, they're the like unique ones. They get like sort of giddy and extra silly when they're, like you're like, did you have too much caffeine today? Because you're bouncing off the walls. No, that's just how they respond emotionally. Okay. And then spiritual self, we know this one is like, maybe you're having more crises of faith. Maybe I'm not meant to be this. Or what are my ancestors trying to tell me? What does Keakua want me to do here? You start finding yourself sending stuff up with question marks on it instead of sort of the general acceptance or comfort you have with your spirituality, but you find more questioning happening when you're burnt out, or where you just feel like, your cell phone reception, you don't have enough bars to reach all the way up to your spiritual place. You're like, I don't know, I got poor reception right now. I'm not feeling my spiritual side very well. And then social and professional consequences. That's the part we're going to zoom in on for a little bit longer here, because that's the part we're kind of talking about what happens in our relationships, what happens in our job. How do we know? Because we need to see it in ourselves, but we also can recognize it in other people around us. Now, just a little tip before we get there. It is super not helpful to walk up to somebody and be like, you know what? I just took a workshop on caregiver burnout and compassion fatigue. I'm pretty sure you have it because you've been very nails all week. That doesn't go over very well with many people. But, if you have that kind of relationship with someone, you go ahead and tell them straight. But most of us need a little bit more gentle hand when we're burnt out. Just saying. Okay, so here's the slide in case you didn't scribble all of that down. I just put it all there. And then let me see if I forgot. Oh, I forgot get sick easily. So one of the physical signs of compassion fatigue and burnout is that because of that sort of intense stress response that your body puts out there to cope with all these stressors, you get sick more easily and you feel a chronic kind of fatigue. If you have woken up every day for 2 or 3 weeks and go like, I'm tired all the time, check that one. Just in your mind, can you remember I said that? Maybe I'm burnt out. Okay. Routines being, for the behavior one, the one we didn't talk about was routines being disruptive. So if you know there's a certain person on your team, or it's you, who every day before they leave, they sort of tidy up. It's their happy close the day kind of a thing. And all of a sudden, Fred over there is just leaving his mess everywhere and just leaves it all in chaos. Now, do you really care what that person's desk looks like? No, but you notice it's looking a little different. That might be a sign. Or Somebody who never cared before is all of a sudden yelling at everybody, who took my stapler? Who took my pencil? Right? Because I didn't say pen because, pen Nazis. I am a little bit pen sensitive, but not super bad. But right, if all of a sudden somebody never cared before about that kind of stuff, but all of a sudden they're super finicky that things have to be just so, that might be another sign of burnout. So, well, that's what I called it, escape seeking. Calgon, take me away. Things where you might be trying to be outside of you a little bit more often might be a sign that's what's happening. So substance use, partying, and partying can mean anything, but just, like that you're always trying to cook up something else to do. So you're not paying attention to what's happening right now. And I just put like a little too invested in what's happening on The Voice. You guys, you don't even have to know what that is. It's a TV show, but just where things that have nothing to do with your real reality or daily life are like super important. Sometimes that's about trying to escape right now. And that's a nice hint when that wasn't you before. Now, if you love The Voice, so do I, it's festive. Except for my husband is too picky because he can hear the difference between sharp and flat way better than I can. So it's kind of nails to watch with him. But if I leave him out of it, that's the gem for me. But right where you're like, I'm having a bad morning because so-and-so got voted off. It's like, oh, okay, maybe a little burnt out. Okay. And then when we're talking about the mental and emotional compassion fatigue and burnout stuff, it's everybody gets sad, right? You hear the numbers of people who've lost things, or you worry about the world and unemployment, or you don't even know how you're going to pay your own bills. Yeah, you might get sad or feel overwhelmed. Burnout is when you see not just that you feel overwhelmed, but that it's easy to trick you into overwhelmed. Boom, something just happens and boom, we're in overwhelm again. Like we just woke up, you didn't even sip one sip of coffee, and you're already overwhelmed with, oh, there's too much going to happen today. There's no way I could get it all done. When it's happening easier and easier, that's how you know. And then on the sadness, everybody gets sad. The challenge is most times, if people are generally functioning in their sort of ideal zone, they go sadder and then they kind of come out of it pretty quick. You're like, oh, I was kind of bummed today, but then I thought about this and it cheered me up. For me, I'm like, oh, what are we I'm going to go for a walk at lunch. I feel all better. Whatever it is, this one's sticking to you when the sad just won't lift. You can't come out of it as easy. That's the thing you want to look for. We talked a bit about the spiritual, and this is one of those ones where this looks really different on people. And it depends on how you engage with your spirit. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But if you just find yourself, if you're not someone who generally hangs out in the spiritual realm and you find yourself going there more, that's one sign. Or if you generally dwell, you hang out in the Lavalani with the spirits and your faith and you pule daily, and you're finding that it doesn't bring you the comfort it normally does, that might be the sign for you. So you're mostly just looking for change, things that have changed in any part of who you are or who they are that you can observe. In the social and professional realm, and we're thinking specifically about caregiving acts now, you start to see folks having a hard time kind of where they're numbing themselves, or they seem numb to what is happening with the people around them, especially with like professional caregivers and health providers, where they don't have as much compassion or they seem unaffected by what's happening for their patients now. And on the other hand, where they're too affected. So if hearing about somebody's right, they really are experiencing pain, but then you got to go in the other room and cry for a long time. And it's a hard time to come back and pull it together. And that's not happening for just the saddest or the one that reminds you most of a family member, but it's like happening a couple times a week. Okay, maybe a little burnout happening here. So either not enough connection anymore, or where you're trying not to connect, or where there's too much connection, either one. So it's, isn't life always about balance? Turns out the middle road, usually a good one. Okay. Other things you might see at work is just more scattered, just can't concentrate, forgot about meetings. Oh, I was supposed to do that, wasn't I? Oh, my bad. That, the scatteredness. And just in general, like I said before, they seem different. So if you know me and you've ever come to sit with me in a space that I'm in, I have piles of things all over the place. That's me. I'm piles. I'll show you. Should I show you? I'm not lying. See, look, piles. So for me, if I have my desk like immaculate, everybody should get a little nervous. What's happening? Who's coming today? Oh, we have company? Oh, okay, no wonder. But if it's like, it's just clean because I did it, it's like, okay, do you need a little break? Maybe go outside for a walk. Because for me, that's a change. Make sense? And for other folks, it's the opposite. See, I always use the clean, messy desk metaphor because it's something most people can relate to. They know what's regular, and then when something changes, they can handle. Okay, you can recognize it in yourself and other people. Okay, so what do we do about it? Dun, dun, dun. Okay, enough of the bummer of all the changes that can happen and how you detect it. That has us focusing on what's wrong, right? Now we go, okay, so I see it. What do I do about it? And what I would say is the first place to start is where you always start. Start with what already works for you. That's my basic, easiest message. The things that already work for you, go check. Are you doing them? Those of you who started a great walking regimen in the middle of COVID with a mask because you could, because you were home more, and now you're not, maybe we need to bring that guy back. Or if you ate way too many double stuffed Oreos because you had bought all this emergency food when you were supposed to have a 2-week supply of food around at all times, and then you ate them, maybe we need to eat a few less double stuffed Oreos. Whatever. Do the things that work for you. But when we're talking about this, it's a little bit bigger than that. So that's the first step. And that might be the visible step to yourself and to other people. But where I really want you to run back to is the basics. Hawaiian health. This is well-being. Hawaiian health and well-being, handy dandy slide right here. This triangle. Not coincidentally the same shape as Kukia Imana. Not a coincidence, I don't think. Although, nobody did it on purpose, but maybe they did. Okay. So this triangle is the simplest way for me to explain Hawaiian health in a nutshell. You are well when the relationship between all these connected parts is strong and in balance. And when one of them is out of balance, that's what illness is. That's what burnout is. And so stress, I want to say, what I want to say is, like, let's take COVID. Let's not take the other stuff, but let's take COVID. COVID basically made all of the sides of the triangle bend, crack, or crunch, right? So if Akua is spirituality, but it's also like your mental state and mental well-being, right? That's the unobservable realm. And Kanaka is your human relationships, your body, your physical self. And then Aina is Aina and Kai and Mauna, but it's also that which feeds you. So it's more about the things that you do that would sustain you. So that could also be your relationships with other people. It could be the work that you do, all those things. COVID has kind of affected the connection between all of them. It squished the whole triangle. So now it's like, it looks more like a star. Not that stars are bad. We love stars, but it's all crunched. So when we're saying, how do you find health again? How do you heal from compassion fatigue and provider burnout? I'm going to take you back to your triangle and go, okay, let's figure out how to strengthen the balance between all the sides again. And the great news is you can start almost anywhere, because if you strengthen one side, it positively affects you and gives you energy to strengthen the other sides. So there's the magic answer. That's the secret to Hawaiian health right there, is thinking about it like that. Okay, but I mean, right. If you have a little fatigue and burnout right now, and that's what made you sign on today, you don't have time for sort of mystical, spiritual, vague. So here we go. Want a list? Let's do a list. Okay. So compassion fatigue and burnout, how to cope with it. The first step is the one that every good primary care doctor tells you every 5 minutes. It's what your mom told you. It's what anybody always tells you, is a ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. What does that mean? Prevent it first. Stop it before it happens. Prevent it and pale yourself. Yeah, that's pale, not pale. For those of you who read Hawaiian and English, you guys get a good giggle out of that. Pale is a Hawaiian word for barrier and protection. So first we're going to prevent it. That's what I was saying. The very first thing to do, if you find that you are twisted up or your friend is twisted up, is you got to go back to basics. So what are the things you do that when you are doing well, you do for yourself? Do you put yourself to bed a certain way around a certain time? What are your rhythms and routines? Did you eat anything that grew out of the ground today? Would be a good question. Did you eat a little, and I mean, at least 2 states before this. So vegetables, fruits, right? Did you eat balanced food? Did you drink enough water? The basics to take care of yourself. Those of you who believe you can freeball it and take care of a whole day of our lahui on one glazed donut for breakfast, come on now. We all know a little better. So have a donut and a spinach omelet. Okay, like just let's make sure that that donut has a friend, something a little more nutritious. Okay, throw a string cheese if that's all we got, a little yogurt. Okay. Greek yogurt, protein, we got this. I'm just joking. I hope you're laughing. I'm assuming you're laughing. Back to basics. That's kind of a big thing that I want to land on here for the moment is just, I cannot say enough how if you find you're burnt out, go back to the beginning, simplify everything. If life feels overwhelming, the best cure is to go, okay, then we're going to face life one breath and one drink of water at a time. We're going to see how we go from there. So when we started today and you took 4 deep breaths, if that was the first 4 deep breaths you've taken since you woke up, then I want you to think about that. Do you need to take a couple more deep breaths first thing in the morning? Or are you pretty chill in the morning? You know, you're kind of a delight until right around 2 o'clock chocolate. Sorry, it used to be 3 o'clock chocolate at our office. We had to like sort of handle that because everybody was, walking around looking for a snack in trouble around 3 o'clock. That happened at your office? It means you didn't eat enough lunch. Anyway, just saying. So maybe we need to take some stress down at lunchtime. Maybe we need to stop, go outside, engage in natural element. By the way, we're going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to need to feel the sun on our face, find where the wind is blowing from, and breathe for a minute to take it back to basics. So whenever things get too much, the best place to start is simplify. Go back to the basics. And if your basics assume that you're generally healthy, meaning, yeah, but I usually read my phone till midnight and only get 5 hours of sleep. And, I basically remember everything I need to do. Okay, now maybe we need to think about making your basics a little more better for you. Yes, sorry, more better on purpose. Yes. Okay, so maybe you're going to do a little tweak there. And maybe you're going to feel less overwhelmed when you've luxuriously afforded yourself some attention to tweak your own self-care routine. Just that. It's the weirdest thing for many caregivers and health providers to stop and go, okay, I'm going to put myself to bed half an hour earlier. All of a sudden, just deciding that you deserve to go to sleep half an hour earlier and get more rest, it like changes your perspective about the world a little bit, both because you got more sleep so you can think straight, and because you gave yourself the attention of being, you deserve it too. You're important enough to make the list, not just everybody else. Okay. After we do all that prevention pale stuff, not pale pale, now we need to heal from it. So whatever does happen to us, because all of us, if you showed me your graph and it was anything like except this or this, then you have some healing to do. So what does the steps of healing take? Well, we can learn a lot from Hawaiian ceremony about how people heal. And if you need to add a mihi practice to this as part of your healing, then who do you have to mihi to? Probably yourself. So mihi means to ask for forgiveness. It's a process of apology and prayer that helps you when you have something that's weighing you down. We can talk about that later, but okay, so we're going to heal from it. Going straight through the front door, the first thing to do to heal it is to recognize it. So just today, if you did the checklist and it's the first time you noticed that you might be having a hard time because you drew your graph and it wasn't perfect, then today is the day you did the recognize. So recognize it when it's happening, and always sooner is better than later. So if you're like, I wasn't too bad, had a couple of dips, but I'm generally okay. I've been walking, I'm fine. Cool. Then let's just figure out how to strengthen your pale stuff, or think through what you would do, or how would you know if you were dipping low? What would it look like on you? Because everybody's burnout looks a little different. If I'm sitting right here and next to me is even one of my siblings, what burnout looks like on me looks really different than what it looks like on her. And so you have to know your own, because you have to take responsibility for that. And in this, I think we're borrowing again from Hawaiian healers. I learned from Auntie Francine Dudois just a little bit. She did a couple of talks that really changed me. And she talked about how she had to pull a lot of weeds before her tutu ever let her touch any kind of actually useful thing. Although it probably turns out she was pulling weeds that were helpful, but it doesn't matter. She was pulling weeds. And this idea about, in every traditional healer method I've ever heard of, where an apprentice goes to learn with a loea, paying attention to your own health and balance is the first step before you're allowed to touch anybody else's energy. So knowing how to center your energy, right? So that's even true in like, Reiki practice and other traditions from around the world. Traditional healing recognizes how important it is for the healer to be well. And that being disciplined and trained in how to do that first. You have to understand and love all the parts of yourself before you can ho'oponopono anybody else's love gone awry. So I think what we know is this idea of know what yours looks like and do the homework you need to do so that you can be well enough to keep taking care of people. It turns out that everybody's health needs are only on the rise, right? This pandemic stuff and the impacts of it on everybody and their isolation, it's creating all kinds of health needs and caregiver needs that are even more advanced than they were in regular time. So we already knew the silver tsunami was coming. We knew we were going to have plenty kupuna and not enough resources in a system to take care of them. So everybody was going to have to do more caregiving on their own of their families. Yes, we know this. We had to talk about this from somebody else, I think, right? In this series, anyway. So we know that's happening. But now we're saying, and now for a whole year, those kupuna have been more isolated than they used to be. They have maybe resisted or had less contact with their health providers because maybe they had a telehealth visit or maybe they couldn't figure it out, but going to the doctor wasn't a good call for them. So then they postpone their wellness and maintenance. So we know that all the people we care for are going to have greater needs. And then we have all this pandemic stuff. Yeah. So for that reason, we know if you have labeled yourself as someone appropriate for this talk, and remember I said that's almost everyone, then you have kuleana as a healer to make sure you are healed or that you are engaged in an active process of staying well and scanning your own energy. We got Lomi Lomi practitioners on. Are you doing your job as a Lomi if you have sore shoulder and didn't take care of it and then you go do it all day, take care of 3 people today, their whole bodies? Probably not. Because we know we need you to Lomi next year. Remember, caregiving and health providing, marathon, not a sprint. We need to stay well for the long game. This is that mindset stuff. I'm skipping like 3 slides ahead. Doesn't matter. The slides are not that important. I think that's the thing I want you. I'm going to stop and I'm going to say that again. Being well is your kuleana. If you're going to be a caregiver or a health provider or a first responder or a parent or a teacher, keeping yourself well enough to do the good work you're doing is your kuleana to them. So as much as you love your mo'opuna, you have to take care of yourself that well. Does that make sense? I know, I'm talking to your brain, but I wanted to sink a little lower into your na'au because caregivers, health providers, we tend to suspend our own discomforts to provide for the care of others, right? Health providers, speak with me. If you got a Mimi, but you're backed up, you might skip it for an extra hour and just go see a couple more people real quick and then go. Or leaders, you ever work through lunch and either inhaled while you were typing or just skipped it and ate rubbish later? Yeah. When you do that, what you're saying is my comfort, my health, not as important or urgent as the mission I'm serving, not as important as the people standing in front of me. Now, hey, guilty as charged. I've done it. I do it. I slip all the time. This isn't perfect and imperfect world. This is everybody keeping working at it. But for that reason, knowing this matters. You cannot do that every single day for a year and expect that your pants fit the same and that you are going to have a great health report when you go see your PCP, which you postpone 3 times because of meetings, right? You can't expect that your well-being is going to be intact when you skip it a lot. So you want to think about that too. How do I challenge myself and my schedule, the way I run my day, to say, do I have some cleaning up to do in here how I do this? Is the world really going to end if I stop for 15 minutes and eat instead of shoveling while I type? Is the world really going to end? Maybe not. And you go, well, but I'm balancing with how much sleep I'm going to get at night. Okay, I get that balance. That's why each of you has to do your own math about how this all is going to work together. Okay, that was I had to get on my soapbox for a minute because I feel like that's the hardest sell for most caregivers and health providers. You go, yeah, I got to take care of myself. And then, I was going to say that other word that means nope in Hawaiian. Well, anyway, we'll just keep going. Okay, so here's the thing. So we did recognize it. Now, here comes the next one that's really hard for most caregivers and health providers. Ask for help. So this doesn't mean, can you take care of all my patients today because I don't feel like it? Not exactly. Or if you do, you really have to think about how many of those you get to pull in a year with your colleagues before they're going to tell you, no, lady, or no, sir. Or I'm, they call me no lady, but so asking for help. But this might mean asking for help figuring it out. It might mean help me keep accountable to the good goals I'm setting with people that you trust who don't bug you. It might mean help seeking from a mental health provider. It might mean help thinking about how we can restructure things a bit so there's a little bit more air for the caregivers among us so that we can keep doing the marathon, because we want everybody to keep doing it. We don't have enough caregivers and health professionals in Hawaii to be throwing a few away because they quit and now they're going to go do something that's entirely self-serving instead. I don't even know what that is, because almost every profession has some caregiving in it. But they're going to leave the health workforce. So they're going to stop caregiving for their relatives and be one of those people that just sort of calls once in a while. And we wouldn't want to lose anybody because we don't have enough. So we have to malama ourselves so there are enough of us. That's one of the things actually that is asking for help. Mentor someone else to do it. Because for those of you who do this, raise your hand if you mentor somebody as part of your work as a caregiver or a healer. Anybody? Hands up? Some? Yeah, mahalo, yes. Now, why do we do that? Is it because we're gluttons for punishment and we love extra work? Well, maybe. A couple of you might be that kind. No, I'm just kidding. But we do it because every time you teach someone to do it, now your hands plus their hands are in the pot of hands trying to help, right? We're extending ourselves beyond just what our own two hands can do. And there's this energy you gain from teaching others. Every time you inspire one to kind of come on board, to join you, and to have capacity to do what you do, we're all taking care of our system a little bit better, right? Because all of us can reach out and heal and help with our two hands the best way we know how for the rest of our lives. And there's still going to be more need than we can meet by ourselves. So teaching and mentoring are a really important part of dealing with burnout in the long run, even though in the moment you're like, I really don't want to stop and explain to you how to do what I do today. I'm not in the mood. Well, then maybe that's one of those ones that when you look at your schedule, you take a deep breath and go, but when I'm teaching, I can feel my mojo coming back. And I like that. So let's think about that, because that's what healing is, right? How do you know if you're coming back from burnout? It's like, to borrow from another famous Austin, just kidding, I'm not a famous Austin Powers, we're looking for our mojo to come back. You can feel when you're cooking with gas, I call it, right? When you are you getting it done the way you know how. I said twice, but you know what I mean. Just kidding. That's how we know. You can feel your own mojo coming back. Everything is not so overwhelming. Everything is not so impossible. And look at that, I fixed it. I got this. Or you got to the end of the day, you're like, wow, I cooked it all day long. I got all kind of stuff done today. Or I got to the end of my patient day and I don't feel hopeless. I feel hopeful. Specifically for health providers, if you have a rough day and you don't have your pale in place and you aren't thinking about some of this stuff, you get to the end of the day and you've basically absorbed all of the iha of every patient that you saw along the way. And really, that's not a recipe for continuing to be a health provider the rest of your life. You have to know how to take that energy, give it the good old Tai Chi, hold the moon and shove it off you so that you can do it again tomorrow. So a good check is, am I still spinning about my patients at night? If I am, I need to do a little bit more healing. If I think of them, but I feel peaceful or I feel energized by having helped them today, my ka'i, you're going to sleep well. Don't worry about it. Okay. All right. Here we go. Next piece of this. I feel like I'm scolding people, but I know so many of you that don't listen to me. So I got to tell you, just kalamai for those of you who actually would listen the first time I told you. I'm just kidding. Well, a little bit I'm kidding, but take breaks. So schedule them if you have to, for those of you who live by your schedules, and then actually take them. It does not count as a break if you go outside and sit in a chair and read your email on your phone instead of on your computer in your office. That doesn't count as a break. That's not a break. That's a change of scenery. I love it. Get a tan, little fresh air is nice, but you haven't actually taken a break. So when you put a break in your schedule, Take the break. I'm going to speak to the health providers among us here and some of you healers. Charting is not a break. Yes, it's a different activity. It's a change up. And yes, we all need that variety. And yes, we all need to document. Nurses among us, you know this. That is not the same as an actual break. Take a smoke break without the cigarette. That's what I always tell people. You know what's nice about smoking? You have a reason to go take a 7-minute break every couple hours. So just take it without the cigarette. We'll be fine. And don't go hang out by the smokers because you know secondhand, all that. Just go over there, take a break. You in the sunshine, couple of deep breaths, laugh a little. You know, you can check on the phone who's on the voice, but you know, who on the voice, but too much scrolling is not good for your soul either. So as much as you can have a technology-free break every day, I would suggest it. Okay, acceptance. This is the one I was scolding you about earlier. It's not really scolding, but it's like nuku, like Hawaiian scolding. It's a little bit different than regular scolding because it comes from love. Acceptance of your own needs and limitations. I know there are superheroes right now in this talk. Who could be giving this talk for me, actually? Some of you are superheroes in the way that you heal, in the way that you love people, in the way that you get it done. You are high functioning individuals. And just because you can doesn't mean you should. So those of you who function on very little sleep, I admire you. I worry about your health. So if you're someone who truly doesn't need sleep, that's great. Then use some of that time to do something beautiful. Do a little art, do a little laughing. I don't know, learn a new skill. So this idea of accept your own needs and your limitations. So accurately knowing what you're good at, what you tend to do, what your style is, strengths and weaknesses, all of that is very healthy for humans, right? To acknowledge what we're good at and what we're bad at. And most people tend to be better at one than the other. Strengths, weaknesses, which one you focus on. But knowing what you need and what your limitations are is also about, how many extra things can I add this week? Because I'm a say yes person. How many extras can I say yes to before it's too many and then all of it suffers, and then I have chest pain, right? Whatever it is, we have to think about our own needs and limitations. The other acceptance is that whole serenity prayer stuff about some of the stressors you can make tiny tweaks and fix, right? If your daily schedule is too full of things and no more lunch, you could adjust it so that it has one lunch or 2 short breaks in which you eat small things. For those of you who do that 82 times a day thing, you can make those adjustments. But some of the stressors you can't change. You can't change that people get older. You can't change that there's a pandemic right now, but you can wear your mask and do all your thing. But once you've done all that, you can't change that everybody loves talking about it with scary music on the news, but you can turn the news off. So once you've changed all that you can change, there has to be an acceptance of a certain amount of the stressors, right? If you have a caregiving function in your world, that's not likely to change. If you see that as your kuleana, it's probably not going to change all the way. There are things that aren't going to change. So sort of accepting the things that are so that they don't dominate all your time with you being frustrated by them, and focusing on the parts you can change can do a lot to lighten some of the load. Because if every day you carry the burden of it, then you now just have heavier shoulders as you try to do the same work as if you let that burden go. You're doing the same work, but your body is just not as burdened by all of it. An example I used, do you guys remember, I guess I want to say the first 3 or 4 months of the pandemic, maybe less so now, but everybody kind of every day would check the COVID number for that day and then call it out to everybody else and tell them, did you see, we're at 246 today, we're at 12 today. And then people would have an experience of worry, anxiety, either way after it. So if the number was 132 or the number was 17, we were worrying about, can we keep the 17 or, oh my God, it's going to get worse. Either way, we had worry, worry, and worry. And so I would say to people, what number or percent of change would cause you to change your daily behavior today? Oh, not unless it was a single digit number would I care. Okay, then why are you checking every day? Do you have to check every day? Because every day when you check, you just stressed yourself out just a little bit more. So if you're not going to change your behavior, if today it's 250 and tomorrow it's 222, nothing you do is going to change. Why are we checking? Oh, just to stay in tune with what's happening in the world. Okay, yeah, tune out for a little while. If you are carrying the kuleana of being a healer, sometimes you cannot carry just the general eha of the world just to be a responsible citizen today. Sometimes you just got to put your head down and go, I am taking care and holding space for the people I've agreed to hold space for. And to do that, I can't hold space for the rest of the universe every day. I can join a vigil and pule for them later, but right now, I cannot check the news as my goal, as my way of participating in the world. Now, that may not be your jam. Maybe you really love the news, but I want to ask you, when was the last time that watching the news was just a soothing practice that you were used to doing from when you were a small kid and you learn a couple of interesting tidbits and then you drift off to sleep so nice? I haven't seen a news broadcast like that in a long time. So just saying, check that out. Okay. Now, next, we are going to sing the Frozen song. Let it go, let it go. Okay. One of the things we need to do when we're trying to heal from burnout and stuff is ho'oku'u. We need to let stuff go. Now, some of you are like, you can't let it go. It's wrong. It's injustice. It's this. It's but you can't take that with you to bed and have a peaceful sleep. And you need a peaceful sleep. So tomorrow you can send the good juju out to other people as you take care of them. So letting it go, whatever that it is. Now, some of you have had a stick you've been chewing for decades, something you're bothered by, your sister-in-law, your something else, whatever, something that's been bothering you. That thing is taking up space in your daily coping. So remember I said layers and layers? Okay, we got all these layers and now we've added COVID, and because of COVID, you don't have enough coping to deal with that and everything else you normally do. So we got to let some stuff go. If we can clean out a couple of closets worth of stuff to let go, we're going to have more bandwidth to do our job and get it done the way we need to. That makes sense? So I'm not saying go cause trouble and you need to start working 12 steps to heal in your fractured old school relationship with the high school bully, whatever. But if that's what you need to do to make yourself let go of anything that is making it hard for you to feel clear and healed and ready, then go for it. If you're going to go cause old trouble, cool. Or if it's more like, let it go in a daily way. So this is the other one that I do. And healers know a lot about this, but not all of the health disciplines necessarily train in this idea that, okay, so let's say you go in with a patient and you've done all your good pale and you go in there and you're all grounded and you're ready. And then they share with you the eha they experience and it really moves you. And so some of that sticks to you as you walk out of the room. Ho'oku'u is to know that you need to let some of that go before you go into the next room. It also means at the end of this workday, as you're walking to the car, you need to let it go before you go drive that and walk it right into your household to share with everybody else. So yes, do we know this? This is sort of like a Hawaiian thing too that we do. Like when you go to a ho'oleva, you don't drive straight home because you don't want to take that eha with you straight to your house. So you go leave it somewhere and then you go home. That's why we all go eat Chinese food. Well, we eat Chinese food because it's delicious, but we go stop the Chinese restaurant before we go home. Yes, is that only my family? I don't know. Anyway, that's why we do that. Or I'll just stop at a beach, let it go, do a little breathing, get home. Same idea for the daily stressors that happen when you're caregiving. So at the end of the day, for me, I mentally picture myself letting it go as I walk to the car. Like I'm dropping stuff off my shoulder, take the one right off my heart, tool from my na'au, I gotta let it go. Because when I get in the car, I need to rock out to my music so I'm festive when I get home. Now, that one we want to do every day. We need to clear every day before we get home. If you don't work at home. Now, those of you working remotely, like you're telecommuting from your house, now you are building up stress and bringing eha into your house. Okay, more homework. You can't be letting that ooze under the door and make everybody else all stressed out and crazy. So now we need to ho'oku'u as it comes in. So if you see a patient, you got to ho'oku'u right as it comes in. Let it go, next patient. And it may be simple as breathing. It may be just an intentional breath, you expel it and you go to the next one. Or it might be something more complicated, like, talking to a friend and then you go in. I don't know. It depends on who you are, how you ho'oku'u, but I'm gonna give that one to you as homework you need to do. So ho'oku'u can mean let go of old pain, old things you've been chewing on for way too long, but it can also be just an act of regular maintenance. You go into a staff meeting, your spine gets all twisted up. Okay, then you need to ho'oku'u before you go try touch, somebody else's soul again, right? Go help them like that. Okay. Oh, mahalo. Mary Kondo, the drama. I love it. Thank you so much. Um, yeah, I read her book. I gave it a shot. Yeah, I don't know. I have so many thoughts about her and Do You Love It? I don't know. I don't love it, but I'm cold at work. I gotta wear something. Anyway, all right, we'll get to that. Okay. So the last of the healing things is the one that I started with. We're going back to the triangle. One of the things that distinguishes the way we, in a traditional Hawaiian perspective, heal from how other people might do it, although I actually think this is a universal, but you know, I got to check with the universe first. I'll let you know when it tells me. Is the idea that in healing from any kind of eha, and especially this kind of burnout where you like loved too much and it broke some stuff in you, engaging with your aina, engaging in aloha aina, engaging with aina and your spirituality are the two pieces that I feel like fundamentally are part of healing in a bigger way, especially when you can't find the words. So I don't know if we have any that have online direct contact helping people that are going through COVID in hospitals. I don't know if we have any online. But if we do, the kind of eha you might experience in that moment is so profound because you find yourself caring for this person, knowing you have all the tools you have, but they're only at the most comfort. They can't fix a thing. And then there's like, why system and all of that stuff that there may not be words. This is true for first responders, true anybody that's been in a trauma, in a war or combat space, anybody that works with individuals who are homeless, anybody that works in a juvenile justice or prison system deal. Sometimes the eha is so big, you just can't put words on it. And when that gets stuck to you, could be same for you too. Sometimes you just don't have the words. I describe it for me when it happens to me. I go, I'm just not fit for humans right now. When I get to the end of the day, you know, and my fella says, let's go, oh, we're gonna go visit whatever, you know, regular time, not COVID time. We're gonna go visit whatever. And I'm like, I'm not fit for humans today. Kalomai. And he knows that's code for us to like, I need to like, you know, go talk to a tree for a little while, something. I don't know. I gotta do, there's not enough words in me to go give words to somebody else. So when that is something that could be happening for you, engaging with aina and engaging your spirit are the two things you can do without knowing any words. You don't have to know why it's broken anymore. If there's just, if I go, how are you? And there's no words and just a tear or like a stun, yeah, maybe we just go throw you in the aina and we'll figure it out later. So this might be, now the thing is everybody, when I say aloha aina, you go, you mean I got to put on my kia imauna hat and go in the lo'i? Yeah, if you have one nearby, cool. But if that's not how you jam, it could be as simple as go stand bare feet on some grass somewhere. Even downtown Honolulu has a little bit of grass somewhere. Maybe it means go find a tree and stare up at it and watch it move for a minute. It means go outside and figure out where the wind blows from where you are right now. And is this the regular wind that blows, or is this one of them weird climate change winds that's coming now? It means let rain hit you straight on the face without covering. Don't cover, just let it hit you. If every drop touches you somewhere and awakens your senses, something magical and healing is happening without you even having to try. That's the nice thing about having a Hawaiian perspective about healing. Nature is there waiting for us. Oh, kalamai. For us, these things are right there for us. Now, if you can go do time in a lo'i, good for you. Please do. If you can go pee kite, go in the kite. And if you can go to the kite, I don't know about you guys, but if you're like a dabbler in the ocean, you're not from the Punua family who hits surfing 4 times a week right now, they're my heroes. But if you just go in, when you go, submerge yourself all the way in the water, all the way under your head. Because some of that pressure, there's some stuff about how inflammation can be resolved, like where the water and the fluids are in your body by being submerged in water. It's some kind of physics thing. I don't know. But what I do know is from a spiritual place, submerging yourself in the water can let some stuff go and quiet the world in a way that few other things can. especially if that's something you did when you were a kid. So I'm going to say, were you a mountains kid when you were little? Were you a water kid? Or were you like a townie and you barely got to do any of that? In which case, do any of them, you'll be fine. Just find the one you like. That's the thing, is how many of you spend as much time in the ocean as you think you ought to? Raise your hand if you're like, yeah, I go in the ocean about as much as I should. I'm there regularly. I'm a regular. Okay, you're my hero if you're yes. But even if you're not, we have access to the kai in a way that most of the earth does not, except for the island nations of our honua. We have access to kai every day if we tried. And the funny thing is the pandemic, that was one of the silver linings, was our oceans are healing. There's like, you want to go hang out with an ilio, holoika uawa, the seal in the ocean, you go, they're chilling right there at the beach. But this idea of putting yourself back in that space of engaging with the natural elements in the ways that you know you need. Now, for some of you, it's like hunting. For some of you, it's like, it's fishing. It's, for some people, aloha aina is preparing food. I know that sounds like a stretch, but really, just taking the time to make those things that make you feel good. Some families, it's the lau lau thing, but that's a lot of dishes. So maybe it's like, you make a soup instead of just, hitting the quick stir fry. I don't know what it is for you, but those acts that feel like you're connecting with your spirit and with the world and Aina, any of those can be a good thing for you. And then with your spirituality, this is one that I feel like is all around us, but we don't talk about it that often. Especially when you're if you're like a traditional healer, then you chill in the spirit realm. Just wave to us from the level, Lenny. Just wave down at us. It's cool. You guys know what you're doing. So coach a friend. In the health practices, while we know spirit is a part of it and hope, and we have all these other words for it, there's not always this conscious idea that sometimes when you can't deal in the human realm anymore, then maybe we got to connect to spirit. I talk about like, for kids where like, we want them to like have a strong identity and be proud of their genealogy and all this stuff, but like every relative they know who's alive is struggling to make a go of it, and so they don't have like a whole lot of inspiring role models around them or something, right? So poor kiddo having a hard time. And I go, okay, if all the living relatives are like struggling, and so that and we can't find ways to frame the struggle as resilience, cool, then we're going to reach the genealogy. Right. And if they don't know their immediate genealogy, well, they know the genealogy of their lahui, whichever one it is. And so we might, in terms of accessing spirit, teach them how to engage with their genealogy so that they can feel proud and good and learn about models of the people that they admire among their genealogy. Right. I mean, it doesn't matter which one it is. There's historical connection and genealogy for every people on the earth, but especially among our lahui. We have people that we can teach them about, that they could live and admire. And they not all ones that like, lived in a palace and were perfectly happy all the time. Some of them are stories of grit and struggle. And maybe that's the story they need to be inspired. So when I say activate your spirit, I mean, yeah, if you have a particular religion, hit it, get at it in a real and engaged and active way. And think about how you engage with spirit in terms of your beliefs about ancestors, about your history, about that stuff. That's why sometimes it's very comforting to read history books instead of just staying and watching the news right now. Why is it comforting? Well, we're alive now, so it happened, but we're okay. There's a assumption when you start the documentary that you guys are okay. Vesuvius, those guys, not so much. Pompeians didn't do too well, but we can learn from that, right? So sometimes it's really comforting to learn your own people's history as a way to heal now. Because it reminds us maybe about circle of life. It reminds us about we're one point in time. Kawai Kapu Kalani Hewitt was the healer, the kahuna traditional practitioner at Waimanalo Health Center when I was a learner there, and long time ago, 1492, something like that. I'm just kidding. But he told me one time, and I knew it was one of those like Hawaiian quizzes where the answer that's obvious is not right. I knew that from the minute he asked me, because he's also kind of a jokester, so he was messing with me, which was great. He said, where's the past? And I'm like, oh no, this is one of those like pick the right finger and Willow, and you're supposed to pick your own finger. And remember, does anybody watch that movie? Magical story. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So he said, where's the past? And I was like, up? I was like, I don't know. And I was sure I was wrong, but I was trying to pick something that sounded a little bit different. And he's like, okay, in a Western perspective, there's a lot of talk about putting the past behind you. So there's a view that you are moving forward into the future and the past is behind you. And I said, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that sounds Westerny to me. Yeah, sure. Past is behind you. And he goes, okay, Hawaiian perspective, we follow our ancestors down a path into history. So the past is before us, is in front of us. And he goes, that's why. And so, well, I can't remember now if he said or if my brain just went all excited and jumped to all the places. But the hopena for me as a psychologist was, or a psychology learner at that time was, so that's why we're anxious all the time. If you think from a Western model that the past is behind you, because all the wisdom, everything they learned already is behind you. And there you are standing in front of this vast void of the future. And you're supposed to know what to do about it. You're supposed to like figure it out for yourself, right? And in the Western model, we celebrate that. We go, yeah, the world is your oyster. Make your choices. You can be anything you want to be. Well, that's a little scary in some senses. That's where some of our stress and anxiety as a people comes from, I think. Where if you turn your brain around, literally shift it around, and you think Hawaii, I am following my kupuna down into the path of history. I'm falling in line with my people. Now, is my way of following them in line, is it going to be a straight line? That kind of, you know me, I'm a little bit doing my own thing, but really, if you think about it, no, I'm falling in line with the rest of my people. I'm a healer just like them. I'm just doing it in a new millennium way. Cool. And so this idea is, it's much more reassuring to know that you are following in the wisdom of your kupuna than it is to think of it as behind you. So in our spirit, in our soul, in our worldview, we have less to fear when we're following our ancestors into history, instead of thinking of ourselves as facing the great void alone. And to me, that brings comfort on a day when other stuff won't. Because some days, all of this weight is going to be healed by one nice glass of water and taking yourself outside to let the sun hit your face, or having a nice talk with a friend, or just taking a deep breath and cleaning your desk for a minute. And for other things, it's deep enough and sore enough, that's not enough. Then maybe we need to remember we're following our kupuna down into history. Because when we think about it that way, what have we to fear? The only people who get in trouble are the ones who turn around and face it the wrong way. Those are the ones who are going to get lost and bang into everybody and cause pirikia. Sound familiar? The ones who are following their kupuna down into history, we just kind of fall in line. We just go. It's going to be okay. And there's something so reassuring about that, that I think healers and health professionals and caregivers can remember when what stands in front of you right now is really hard, is literally a pile of poo, to be very blunt, but hey, caregivers are on the phone. You guys know what I mean. When that's what's in front of us, if the right now is too hard, then let's know where we're heading is smooth. We're heading there. This is just so that we take our mindset out of focusing on the now when the now is too hard. We can look up and it's okay. And then we can look back down again and wrap it up and clean it up and hit it with some, sanitizing, whatever, and move on with our lives. Because we're get her done people too, right? That's our thing. We just, oh, is that the ick we got? Okay, sleeves up, let's go, let's get it done. That energy comes easily when our mojo is there. So anything we have to do to get our mojo flowing again, mojo is not a Hawaiian word. See, there's a j in it no more, but it's okay. Anything we have to do that is worth it. So I give you the biggest list I can give you so that you can try any part of this that speaks to you. You don't want to go hang out in mumbo jumbo land. You're not feeling the spirituality. And you're like, no, I'm a townie. I think I aloha aina by walking around Target. Who am I to judge? You go walk around Target then. Just go laugh at. I like to go to that bullseye playground, the dollar section. Totally my jam. Anyway, so just give that all. You use what's useful of all this. Remember, I was saying, find your air. Pull from this what you were supposed to hear, or what you need, or what you want to share with somebody else. That's the biggest gift. And I think that's going to be the homework from this, is figure out one thing you could tell somebody you know about this. Just be like, I was at this talk today and they were talking about this. Just one little thing. Or you don't even have to say I was at this talk today, to be like, hey, how much water do you drink every day? Is that really a thing? just send that one out in the world, see what happens. Okay. Last thought for the day. Did you know that getting insufficient sleep, so less than 7 hours of sleep a day, is associated with weight gain? And did you also know that if you can just increase your sleep by half an hour a day, you can prevent that no matter where you're starting from? If you're one of those 4 hours of sleep people, just get half an hour more. You can turn it around. Okay. You can turn the clock. Okay. My ʻŌiwi. I think we've had enough of all this, haven't we? Okay. We already talked about that. Okay. Yeah, that's where we are. Can we talk story? Anybody brave enough to unmute and share with me? Drop some wisdom. Not a question, but a comment. Oh, mahalo. Thank you, Tammy. Hi, Liana. Okay. Thoughts, questions? I'll take anything. You guys want to go to a random topic? I'll tell you more about weight gain and sleep if you want, but I just told you the basics. Go get more. Yes, thank you. Sufficient sleep helps with Alzheimer's. Do you know what else helps with Alzheimer's? It's a use it or lose it model. So they did some studies and they found out that people that just do word searches versus people that play bridge or do crossword puzzles where you use your mind, better yet, when you use your mind, it helps it hang in there longer. So yeah, let's take care of that. Let's keep our brains rolling. Mahalo, kamahana. It's so nice to share air with you, even if it's virtual. Okay, folks, any questions? Hi, how are you? Yes. You see, when you use Google Maps, you don't remember the street names, you're not using it. I know. You know what's so funny is people don't know their friends' phone numbers anymore. But I still remember my friends' phone numbers if I learned them when I was in 5th grade. I still know how to call up Kanani. People don't know that anymore. Serious. Did you know that? Try go ask a millennial what their mother's phone number is. They don't know. It's like a thing. They go, you press mom. Anyway.
Oh, we got a comment from Victoria. Thank you so very much. My husband, a Kanaka Maoli, age 82, is listening and loving this presentation.
Oh, mahalo.
Acknowledging Hawaiian wisdom in the triangle was wonderful.
Mahalo. Yeah, it's like not secret stuff, but it feels like we don't own our stuff as often. There's plenty that we already know. We just got to go back and revisit it. That's why I always go back to basics. This stuff is not easy. This was for many, there are a few of us who have lived through 2 global pandemics, but for many of us, this is the first one. And so we don't have the moves quite right now. Mahalo nui, all you folks. Okay. Maybe got to do that survey thing. Are we, Paul?
I don't know. I think I have a comment more too. Also, I think is, because us in healthcare are probably the worst patients, right? Like you had mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. But I think also we have to be given permission. I think whether it's implicit or explicit from leadership, to be okay with all of this, what we call self-care. So I think it's really helpful when leadership acknowledges that. Yeah. And we pick up our cues from them. Totally. Right. Because then otherwise there's this tendency that we're feeling too selfish.
Yeah. And I think part of it is the language. I heard somebody say this recently, or it was at a talk or something, and they said, stop calling it self-care because that makes it sound selfish. It's your responsibility. It's part of like, how like health providers have to do continuing ed credits in order to keep their license. If you want to be in Hawaiian health, or you want to be a health practitioner, you want to be a caregiver, this is what you have to do in order to be allowed to do it. It's almost like you have to get your continuing ed credits instead of just calling it self-care, but you got to get your self-care credits in order to keep doing this work. Because right, if it's not made important in the structure of the organization or in the way that everybody talks about it, or they don't at least model the good behavior, it's hard to make that. Thank you. It's hard to make that important yourself. It's hard to talk about that. Let's see. Okay, Aukahi, I'm looking to gain more insight on Hawaiian practices. I'm a school counselor, mahalo. What might you recommend I do? I pick up a few webinars and enroll in Hawaiian studies, but not sure if there's a better way to go about it. I think I want to say, I try to think about how I figured it out. And I kind of want to say, I don't know, I just got older and lucky. I had beautiful healers around in different places in my life that taught me stuff. But so I think just keep on living. I think the open to learning it generally invites it around you. So surrounding yourself in spaces where you might learn about those things. There's not a ton of places where I like went to a class and they said, here's the triangle, let me tell you how it works. So much. But what I would say is probably the most influential thing that I did that helped me to be comfortable in where I am with it is I engage in a cultural practice. So any Hawaiian cultural practice there is, you want to make lauhala, you want to learn about plants, you want to learn how to lomi, you want to dance hula, you want to become a chanter, you want to learn how to ha'iolelo and give speeches like Hawaiian. If you take a class in any of those things and engage in that cultural practice, that's where most of this got integrated for me. So I have a kumu hula, Manu Boy, he's my kumu. And even though he's not a health practitioner, he's an ed person and a culture and music person, much of what I learned about Hawaiian worldview came from him. And then I can integrate with what I know about myself and my healing and my discipline together. So I would say all those things you sound like you're doing are amazing and wonderful. And I don't know about you guys, but there's like a webinar every 5 minutes from like Loea, Hawaii happening right now. You like turn on the Zoom and there it is. So yes, capture all of those moments because they're wonderful. And then I would say, but the sort of the doing, because I believe in the doing, any cultural practice where you engage teaches so much. Ceremony is about exertion. You offer something of yourself. And that's why the ceremony works, is because of your exertion. You gave it something, your spit, your sweat, your whatever. So if a ceremony is exertion, then I know when I'm engaging in a healing practice, like therapy for a psychologist, I know that I need to put in my work and prepare so that I'm ready for that similarly sacred thing to do, to heal. So any cultural practice will help put all the pieces together. Because the ike is that's the cool thing about Hawaiian ike in general, Hawaiian knowledge in general, is there's always like 18 layers to a single kind of knowledge. So like we know a thing, everybody knows the song, everybody knows how to say it, everybody knows ALOHA, right? Whatever. Just kidding. Aloha, right? But when you become a healing practitioner, you understand these depths of aloha that you never understood. And then if you're a hula person, then you understand it from the ki'e to the kailoa. You know what I mean? You understand. So there's all these layers of understanding. Knowing that, and then having your suspicions that any simple thing you learn probably has a depth to it, is the thing you learn from cultural practice. Anyway, I don't know if that helps, but that's just a thought. But I appreciate you very much. Thank you for what you do. School counseling is no joke, man. Thank you. You're like the multi-purpose catch-all. It's like, oh, call the counselor. I don't know. Go see the counselor. I don't know. You know, you're kind of like the way that I like to practice therapy stuff, which is whatever walks in the door, I'm going to figure out how to help. Whatever it is, health, mental health, something else, resources, housing. Okay, we'll give it a shot. Let's go. So I appreciate you. Thank you very much. All right, darlings, we've passed our time.
There's one more comment. We would not think twice about putting oil in our autos. That is maintenance. So maintaining ourselves is our responsibility too. Kuleana.
Mahalo. That's a great way to frame it. Maintenance. Yes. Although I'm terrible at oil changes, so that metaphor would not work on me, but that works on people whose cars currently have sufficient and fresh oil. Mahalo nui. Okay.
Well, mahalo for everyone joining us today, and lots of gems in this presentation. We could all start practicing right after this. I just want to give a mahalo to my IT support. I always make sure we start off on the right foot, and that's Marvin Buenafe.
Mahalo, Marvin.
Yeah, and then just to let you know, our next webinar, is the second Friday of March, and that's going to be featuring Kala Domingo and Maka Meleasi. I can't remember how to say her last name. I apologize very much, sorry. But they're from the Papa'ola Aukahi has another web series called Hey Noi Ina Ma'i, and they are our archivists at Papa'ola Aukahi. So anything they find that they think we would really learn a lot from, they share with us. And so I have invited them to speak at our next one. And then also just to keep an eye out for the evaluation. Of course, that's where we get all our topics for our future webinars. So just want to say mahalo, especially to Aukahi for joining us, taking time out of your busy schedule, just like everyone else. And maybe I'll try to watch less webinars.
Okay.
Save those and put them somewhere else when I'm ready to see them.
Perfect. My ka'i, I love it.
So I just want to tell everyone malama pono, and we'll keep in touch. Ahui ho.
Ahui hono.